Sexual education. Introduction. Sex education, also known as sexual education, sexuality education, or sex ed, is the instruction of issues relating to human sexuality, including emotional relations and responsibilities, human sexual anatomy, sexual activity, sexual reproduction, age of consent, reproductive health, reproductive rights, sexual health, safe sex, and birth control. Sex education, which includes all these issues, is known as comprehensive sex education, and it often opposite of abstinence-only sex education, which only focuses on sexual abstinence. Sexual education may be provided by parents or caregivers, or as a part of the school programs and public health campaigns. In some countries, it is known as relationship and sexual health education. Lipton sees sex education as instruction in various psychological and sociological aspects of sexual response and reproduction. Kearney, in 2008, also defines sexual education as involving a comprehensive course of action by the school, calculated to bring about the socially desirable attitudes, practice, and personal conduct on the part of the children and adults that will best protect the individual as a human and the family as a social institution. Thus, sexual education may also be described as sexuality education, which means that it encompasses education about all aspects of sexuality, including information about family planning and reproduction, plus information about all aspects of one's sexuality, including body image, sexual orientation, sexual pleasure, values, decision-making, communications, dating, relationships, sexually transmitted infections, and how to avoid them, and the birth control methods. Various aspects of the sexual education are considered appropriate in school depending on the age of the students or what the children can comprehend at the particular point of time. Grooming and Kindendall expresses that the sexual education is not merely the topic of reproduction and teaching how babies are conceived and born. Instead, it has a far-reaching scope and goal of helping children incorporate sex more meaningfully into their present and future life, and to improve them with some basic understanding of virtually every aspect of the sex by the time they reach of full maturity. Reasons to support sex education in schools.
Reasons to support sex education in schools. Teens need to know safer options. One of the biggest problems with abstinence-only education is that it denies teenagers the chance to learn about a sexual option other than abstinence. Given that no form of sex education has been shown to effectively convince teenagers not to have sex, this is a significant problem. Presumably, parents and educators want adolescents to be as healthy and happy as possible. One would hope that would be true even if those adolescents aren't managing to conform to the standards of behavior that adults would consider ideal. 1 in 2 teens have had sex. A large number of teens are sexually active. According to the Joe's Risk Behavioral Survey or IRBSS, in 2015, 41% of high school students had had sex at least once, other findings. 11.5% had 4 or more sexual partners. 57% of sexually active students had used condoms the last time they had sex. Only 18% had used birth control pills. Furthermore, 1/5 of sexually active high school students had used drugs or alcohol before that most recent time they had sex. In many cultures, the discussion of all sexual issues has traditionally been considered taboo, and adolescents were not given any information on sexual matters. Such instruction as was given was traditionally left to a child's parents, and often this was put off until just before their marriage. However, in the late 19th century, the progressive education movement led to the introduction of sex education as social hygiene in North American school curricula and the introduction of school-based sex education. Despite early inroads of school-based sex education, most of the information on sexual matters in the mid-20th century was obtained informally from friends and the media, and much of this information was deficient or of dubious value, especially during the period following puberty, when curiosity about sexual matters was the most active. This deficiency was heightened by the increasing incidence of teenager pregnancies, particularly in Western countries after the 1960s. As part of each country's effort to reduce such pregnancy, programs of sex education were introduced, initially over strong opposition from parents and religious groups.
Holistic sexuality education.
Sexuality education aims to develop and strengthen the ability of children and young people to make conscious, satisfying, healthy, and respectful choices regarding relationships, sexuality, and emotional and psychical health. Sexuality education does not encourage children and young people to have sex. The concepts of holistic sexuality education is defined as follows: learning about the cognitive, emotional, social, interactive, and psychical aspects of sexuality. Sexuality education starts early in childhood and progresses through adolescence and adulthood. It aims at supporting and protecting sexuality development. It gradually equips and empowers children and young people with information, skills, and positive values to understand and enjoy their sexuality, have safe and fulfilled relationships, and take responsibility for their or other people's sexuality, health, and well-being. What are the benefits of sexuality education? Sexuality education delivered within a safe and enabling learning environment and alongside access to health service has a positive and lifelong effects on the health and well-being of young people. Studies in several European countries have shown that the introduction of long-term national sexuality education programs has led to a reduction in teenage pregnancies and aborting in a declining in rates of sexuality transmitted infection and HIV infection among young people aged 15 and 24 years. Beyond that, by increasing confidence and strengthening skills to deal with different challenges, sexuality education can empower young people to develop stronger and more mindful relationships. Social norms and gender inequality influences the expression of sexuality and sexual behavior. Many young women have low levels of power or control in their sexuality relationships. Young men, on the other hand, may feel pressure from their peers to act according to male sexual stereotypes and engage in controlling of hormone behavior. Good quality sexuality education has an impact in positive attitude and values and can ever or the power dynamics in intimate relationships to the prevention of abuse and fostering mutually respectful and consensual partnerships.
Myths and facts about sexuality education.
Good quality sexuality education does not lead to youth people evinced irradiate than expected based in the national advance. They have been shared in research studies in Europe, including Sri Lanka and Estonia, and research from other countries around in the EU. Good quality sexuality education can however lead to later sexual debut and more responsible sexual behavior. Sexuality education does not deprive children of their innocence, giving children information on a sexuality that is scientifically accurate, non-judgmental, age appropriate, and complete as part of carefully phrased process from the beginning of formal care, including kindergarten and preschool, is something from which children can benefit. Sexuality education and opens attitude toward sexuality do not base itself for purify to abuse children. The opposite is this case. Young children learn about equality and repair in research something they are in adverse position to recognize a basic person and situation. In the absence of the children and youth, people can look for and receive conflicting and sometimes damaging messaging from their peers, the media, or other sources. Sexuality education is not damaging to children or adolescents. Sexuality education encompasses a range of topics that are tailored to their age and developmental level. Of in child, this is what is called a appropriate and science age for a 6-year. For example, learning about topics of and friendship, emotion, and different parts of the body. The topics are also relevant for older children and adolescents, but are taught at different levels. Gradually, other topics such as poverty, family planning, and contraception are introduced for much to adapt sexual relations. Children in early life, children are aware of and recognize the relationship long before they act on their sexuality and therefore need the child to understand their body, relationship, and feeling from an early age.
Conclusions. Thanks for watching.